Alrighty, good morning, everybody. So, Dr. Barrios is a board-certified general surgeon with added qualifications in surgical critical care. He's a health sciences clinical professor at UCI. Oh, sorry, give me a moment. At the UC Irvine School of Medicine and is a practicing trauma and general surgeon. Dr. Barrios completed his training in surgical critical care at UCI in June of 2007 and subsequently joined UCI in July of the same year. Dr. Barrios is the director of the Trauma Division Research Program, director of the Critical Care Core Lecture Series, serves as the chair of the UCI School of Medicine Admission Committee, and is chair of the Organ Donor Council. Dr. Barrios' clinical research in trauma and critical care issues includes the utility of thoracic CT imaging in trauma patients, anemia, end-of-life issues, and more. His work has been presented at numerous professional conferences and has been published in a number of peer-reviewed journals. Dr. Barrios is also a passionate humanitarian volunteer. Since 2011, he has participated in 9 mission trips to date in Nicaragua, Peru, El Salvador, and Colombia through the International Medical Alliance organization. Please welcome Dr. Barrios.
Hey there. Okay, I'm trying to see if it's on my end. I can't see anybody. And things you want to hear your surgeon say. I'm not that technically savvy. Let me see. Speakers, sort by gallery. I'm an MC gallery, but let me see. Hide self view. Hide non-video participants. Show media. Nope, that's not it. All right, I'm not sure why I can't see everybody, but oh well. We'll chit chat.
It's all right. I haven't look. I don't look any prettier than before. So, and I know Matt is definitely not pretty. So,
So, oh my gosh, like thrown under the bus. So I'll do this the way I usually do this, which is a little bit of stream of consciousness. But I'll cover the topics that I know a lot of you are very interested in, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions. And I will cover a few of my pet peeves, which will answer a few of your questions. So here we go. What does it take to get into medical school? And first of all, congratulations to everybody who's here because you're doing one of the things that I tell people, which is ask questions. Just make yourself knowledgeable about the process. I will tell you how I got into medical school, which I completely don't recommend, but it was based on ignorance and I didn't know enough. And so I'm glad that you guys here to avail yourself of all the tools and all the answers that you can possibly get. And I tell people, just ask people questions until you annoy the bejesus out of them. It's okay. So this is how I applied to medical school. I thought that you applied to a medical school, and if you didn't get in, you applied to another medical school, and if you didn't get in, you applied to another medical school. Which in retrospect, that could take you years to get into medical school. So I applied to one medical school and I got in. So I don't recommend that. Those are not the odds. And you can say what you want about my application, but I couldn't compete with most of the kids that are, if I used my application today, I couldn't compete with most of the kids that are applying today because you guys are just ridiculous. And what do we mean by that? What are these applications looking like? Well, the first thing obviously is and I can't do anything about that. Only you can do something about that is your MCAT and your GPA, right? And I can't tell you what numbers we look at, but every school has posted what their average is. UCI is above 5.8 now, and sorry, 3.8 and 517 on the MCAT. But that means that there's a lot of people above and there's a lot of people below. So it's not necessarily useless. Now or hopeless, I should say. But I will tell you this: there are some cutoffs that we use that we don't want to let you in if you're going to struggle. And all I will say is that MCAT score has a 5 in front of it. If you don't have that, then that's going to hurt you. So you get screened in for a screen in, right? Which is you get past that computer spits you out thing. And then you have people like me that read all of your applications, Last year, I read about 950 applications. So was it that commercial? I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two. What do we look for? Aside from your grades, because that already got you in the door. We look for activities. All right. And this is, and I know it bothers a lot of people, but and I know it's a rat race. It's become, and I'm gonna skip the research until the end because that's become my pet peeve this year. Clinical activity. How do you know? I will give you an example. I got well over 3,000 viable applications this year already. So let's just say 3,000. So 3,000 people woke up with the fantasy that they wanted to go to medical school. All right. And how do I know that you know what you're getting yourself into and that it's not just a fantasy? Because this happens, and this happens to people that come and shadow me, is they come and they take a look at what actually goes on and they're like, yeah, you know what? Never mind. So I want to know that you know what you're getting yourself in. The only way you can do that is to roll up your sleeves and go do some patient care. Scribing, medical assisting, CNA, EMT, these are all the popular things these days, and those are perfectly fine because that's direct patient care. Please do not put that you took care of a family member. Not going to count it. I don't know why people feel that taking care of people at home is either a community service or clinical exposure. It's just not the same. So if you were intending on that, at least maybe I can cut you off at the pass. A couple of the things that I say may sound negative, but they're not negative. They're just to like help you avoid pitfalls. Community service. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're teaching kids how to do underwater basket weaving in a disadvantaged neighborhood or Habitat for Humanity or teaching kids how to ride horses. But the point of that is medicine is still a very sacrificed field. You are going to miss some family dinners. You are going to miss your kid's soccer practice. I mean, and it's better than it used to be, but it still happens. If your office hours are 9 to 5 and you still have 5 patients out in the lobby, are you gonna like send them home? No, you're gonna stay extra hours. So there's little different ways that you sacrifice yourself. And so the only way that I know that you're willing to do that kind of thing is that you've done some community service. Now, I do prefer that you please do something that makes sense to you. Because like I said, if you go teach courses, kids how to play basketball and then do the underwater basket weaving and then you do Habitat for Humanity and then you go, it's obvious that you're checking off boxes and we can see it. And people like me who are really good at reading between the lines because we've seen it all are just going to say this kid's checking off the boxes. And even though you did everything right, I'm still going to not be that excited about your application because it's not coming from who you are. The things that I like are the kids that like, oh, I like playing basketball. So I go and teach kids how to play basketball. My favorite example is the girl who was an equestrian and she taught autistic kids how to ride horses because it's therapeutic. And oh, by the way, it's because one of her siblings was autistic. So that's the point I'm making. Oh, I'm a carpenter. So I do Habitat for Humanity. In other words, make it make sense. And I prefer things in all the activities that I'm going to mention, whether it's research, community service, or clinical exposure. I prefer 1 or 2 things over longer periods of time than a bunch of little things on the summer. I did this, and then this summer I did that, and then one semester I did this. It's not the same. Time commitment, work commitment. These are things that I prefer over you racking up all your hours because you did 50 hours over 10 different activities. So, which is going to bring me back to research. My pet peeve this year. I don't know what happened. I don't know if there was a Reddit thread. I don't know, but now I'm seeing all these applications with kids doing 4 or 5 different research activities and they're killing themselves. You guys are killing yourselves. And I'm going to tell you, you're wasting your time. How so? Because, again, I would rather you do one or two things for a long period of time. And I can't tell you what my algorithm is, but I'll tell you, I'll kind of skirt around it. Once you get to a certain number of hours, and I don't care how you got there, I don't care if you got there with one person. So let's say, not a magic number, but you did 1,000 hours. I'll tell you, if you did 1,000 hours, you get the same number of points than if you do 3,000 hours. And if you do the 1,000 hours with one person, you get the same number of points as if you did it with 4 or 5 people, which I've now started to see. So don't kill yourself. It's an exaggeration. All right. You get the same number of brownie points. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But so because it's annoying to me now to read people doing like a summer here, a semester there, another summer next year, and you know what? Oh, and by the way, from these activities, I prefer or I like to see that you get a letter of recommendation right then. So again, not this is not the number that I use, but you got 1,000 hours of research in somebody's lab over a year, and they sent you a nice letter, plus minus publication. That's almost the max number of points you're going to get. So, don't hyper focus on that, despite what is out there in Reddit. I kind of should go out there and look at Reddit, but I kind of feel like I don't have enough alcohol in my house to do that. So that's that. And then the last thing, let's say you did enough, you got yourself invited to an interview. Interpersonal skills. The things that happen before the interview are your personal statements and your secondaries, right? Like UCI uses the what are you proud of and what's a challenge that you overcame. I use the 80-20 rule, and I'm going to break a few hearts. But 80% of those personal statements that you read, that I read, or that you write, are very standard. And in fact, I have names for them. So there's the sick grandparent, where you start off with the sick grandparent. And I will tell you right now, please, dear God, do not start off with the sick grandparent. Why? I know that your grandparents were special to you, but unfortunately, they are not special to me. And you all are at the age where your grandparents are going to have some sort of medical problem. And so that doesn't distinguish you from the 949 other applications that I will have read. And you're wasting real estate. So it sounds negative, but the positive is, listen, there's of those 20%, so 80% does nothing for me. Oh, and by the way, the other one's the laundry list, the other big mistake. I did this and this and this and this, and therefore I'm ready to go to medical school. In fact, here's the application that I read again 80% of the time. I remember when I used to play checkers with Nana and Pop Pop, and then they couldn't remember how to do it anymore. So then I decided to understand the underpinnings of Alzheimer's. So I worked in somebody's lab, and then I realized that I didn't really have contact with the patient. So I decided to work at an assisted living facility. But then I decided that I really wanted to treat these people. So I went to a neurologist's lab, and now I'm ready to go to medical school. So I read that one all the time, of variations on the theme, but essentially that. And then we call that the laundry list and the grandma. So the point of that is I want to know who you are that's different from all these other people that are applying. And I know that's a little bit hard. It's kind of like the penguin from Happy Feet, right? Like I got to be me, but you can still do it. You are an individual. You have distinct experiences. You have distinct impressions and insights into the experiences that you had. That's what I'm looking for, not the experiences themselves. I already know what experiences you had. I'm going to read them in the activities section. So don't rehash. If you're going to rehash it from the point of view of like, this is the insight that I got, or this was my life experience that led to this, aside from the sick grandparent. And so that's where I'm going with that. And I hope that's good insight for you. Because here's the other 20%, right? There's the 10% of half of those 10% are the ones that really do wow me. Like, wow, this kid really did have an interesting experience, or wow, this kid really did have a great insight into why they wanted to go to medical school. Uh, but that's only 10% of the applications that I read, right? So it's a difficult task. I'm setting the bar higher, but is that 80% really going to help or hurt you? No. Is it going to harm your application? No, but it's not going to do anything to add pizzazz to your application. So don't feel that if you wrote that laundry list or the sick grandparent that you're doomed automatically, but it is going to get a little bit of an eyeball roll from me, and it's not going to help you. And then there's the 10% that just writes something god awful, like why would you write that, right? And so this is my advice to everybody. Again, the pearl of advice coming from that is make sure that somebody reads that statement. I don't care if it's your sibling, your parents, doesn't have to be a professional, writer. It could be your colleagues, an advisor on it. Just make sure that everything's spelled correctly and the syntax is good and that you didn't put something stupid in there, because I'll give you examples of how I'll give you one example of how one person should have really looked at or asked somebody about how they felt about their personal statement. So he writes that he likes medical clowning. Must have watched the Patch Adams movie about some famous doctor with Robin Williams. It was who liked to dress up like a clown and go to like a kid's hospital and run around and make the kids laugh and make them forget that they were sick, and it's therapeutic. And I get that. That wasn't the issue that I had. The issue that I had was that he doubled down and he goes, and I just like hanging out with little kids. Okay, so now he went from kind of cute, he's probably going to be a pediatrician, little cliche, whatever, to now I need to be calling CPS. Um, so
And I can tell you that working in hospital, if you show up in a clown outfit, you will get tackled. Just telling you that right now.
so again, just have somebody proofread it, right? Because and by the way, when I do read these things, and here's the part where I'm going to break your heart. And I did say when, because I do not read all of the personal statements. Why? I read a good portion of them, but because a lot of you fall into the bubble. But if your application is really so good already, there's probably nothing in there in that personal statement that's going to make me change my mind, and you're going to get the invite. If your application is so weak, there is probably nothing in there that's going to make me change my mind, and I'm not going to read that personal statement. If you're on the bubble, which again, that's a good portion of everybody, then yes, I'm going to read that personal statement again, because I'm looking for that insight or that unique thing about you that's going to push me over to the edge to go like, I was on the edge, but like now I want to invite this kid. That's how your personal statement helps, right? So, but by the way, while I'm reading that, the point I was getting to also was there is between AI and I'm not saying have everything written by AI, but between AI and spell check, there is absolutely no reason that you can't have perfect spelling and syntax, because I will tell you, as a, I don't know if I'm a former nerd, but as a real former nerd, one, semicolon in the wrong place or one misspelled word, and it just takes me out of the whole thing. And again, if you don't have that attention to detail that you can't even get your personal statement correctly written, then, what hope do I have that you're going to pay attention to all the details you need to pay to when you're in medical school? So that's that frame of mind. AI, yeah, I don't know what to tell you other than it's going to write you a very, very, very generic personal statement that's not going to help you. So, try it. And places are now trying to figure out, and it's becoming obvious when AI is writing things. So, not recommended. Okay.
Most academic institutions have licensing, so somebody could run it through a AI detection.
Yep, believe it or not, there are we don't have it yet, but we're on our way to do it. To have like, yes, this thing was very likely written by AI, and then like, okay, you cheated, and you're gonna cheat on a test in medical school, so I'm not gonna take that chance on you. So the last part. Oh, and by the way, please also pitfalls, avoid the savior. if it weren't for me, this poor person would have not have gotten medical care and would have died, or if it, like, I literally had like the white savior thing where this kid worked in an underprivileged neighborhood, and if it weren't for the fact that he cleaned up the neighborhood, these people would have kept living in terrible environments and would have suffered. And like, Dr. Kildare, get over yourself. So avoid that pitfall. Um, the interview. Why do we interview? Right? And this is a particular thing of mine. This is a glorified people profession. If you were going into something that didn't involve interactions with people, engineering, accounting, or we didn't care about your personality, like being a lawyer. Like I joke all the time about lawyers because my brother's a lawyer. That then I don't care, right? But why do I interview you? Because I want to make sure that you have good interpersonal skills, that you're empathic, that you have a normal range of emotion, that you're not a little cray cray. We actually have a running joke that I started on the admissions committee that these interviews are for you to keep the crazy down for 30 minutes. If you can't keep the crazy down for 30 minutes, what hope do I have that you're going to do that for 4 years? And you would be surprised how many people dumpster fire themselves during the interview. And I'm going to give you a couple of good examples, or at least one really good example. Why? Right? Patients are going to come to you and they're going to be sick and they're going to be scared and they're going to be in pain. And they're going to want to know that you feel for them and that you are going to be their advocate and that you're going to be empathetic and sympathetic. And if you can't do that, I don't care how good a physician you are, they are not going to come back to you. They are not going to refer their friends and family. Colleagues are not going to refer patients to you because they're going to get the feedback that you were a cold fish, a dead fish, right? And so I cannot underestimate, because I do get kids, and I will tell you, I do get kids with like almost perfect academics, and they did all the right activities, and they're not getting interviewed, or they're getting, rejected, and they're either they can't understand why, and they're not reading between the lines, or for some reason they feel it's racist. And I will tell you this. Race, ethnicity, gender, politics, religion, socioeconomic status, uh, none of that means medical conditions. None of that means anything to me. Now, the medical conditions, you have to take a step back, because if it does affect your ability to perform the activities that I want from you if you get in, that's a little bit of a different story. But if it's something that I can accommodate, or is it something that really going to hamper your ability to do some work? But other than that, I don't care what your name is, where your parents came from. It's not a thing. So in fact, I try really hard these days to not even read the applicant's name so that I don't have any kind of bias whatsoever, as much as I possibly can. So, I mean, I really try hard to, you know, avoid all of those extraneous things. However, there are a couple caveats. If you put something on your application and you put it in there, it now becomes fair game. And I'll give you that example. But the thing that annoys me is these kids that have no insight, and I can tell you, and you can see it on the application. They didn't get in, and they had a 3.9 and a 517 on their MCAT, and they retake their MCAT. I can guarantee you that MCAT of 517 was not what didn't get you in. So you have to have some insight. You need to look at why. And we'll talk a little bit about if you didn't get in, what happens. Because this is also my other favorite Reddit that I know people kind of ask me about. But I just want you to be normal and have a range of emotions, and show some interest in my school. Things that I tell people, like when you're getting prepped for like an interview, go to the website, find out what that school is proud of, and make sure you know about it, right? Like if you come to UCI, it's going to be the ultrasound and the sim and the how we just got accredited for 8 years, which is like the best that you can do, from the AAMC oversight committee and all that kind of stuff. So why do you want to come to my med school? I know you want to go to any med school, but why? Show a little bit of these little things that give you that extra little brownie point that might make the difference, right? I've literally had kids tell me that they like the geography uh, at UCI because they can go to the beach, they can go to the mountains. And I'm like, really? That's the best that you can come up with. That's a fail. So, but here's the extreme fail. And this was back in the day when even, I mean, this is how much she stood out when, before COVID, and the interviews were in person. She put on her application, became fair game, that her mother owned a music studio and that she played the piano. So at the end of most, and a lot of people, and especially my people now, we ask you the question, well, what do you do in your spare time? And this is like minute 27, right? What do you do in your spare time? That's just for you. What helps you decompress? What makes you happy? What goes towards your wellness? However you want to look at it. And you'd be surprised how many people cannot answer that question, how many people just completely flail. And so she says, I like teaching people how to play the piano. That was actually a really good answer, right? Because we look for things like she's teaching other people, she's interacting with other people, she's passing on skills, the time and the patience and the perseverance and the repetitiveness of knowing how to play the piano and teaching somebody how to. So that was not a bad answer, but I made the fateful mistake of asking her, well, is it out of your mother's studio or do you do this on your own? Right? So her face completely changes. She gets angry and she replies to me in this tone, no, I would never work out of my mother's studio because she says that I owe her everything and I'm not going to add anything to it. She thinks I need to be grateful. And I'm like, I was looking for my panic button. Uh, you know, if you have issues, and in this case, mommy issues that bubble to the surface so easily, you're going to have trouble. What happens when she sees an older patient and the older patient disagrees with her plan of action? Is she going to go off on the patient? What happens when an older female attending criticizes her on her educational progress? Is she going to go off on that person? So you really need to keep the crazy down. You need to leave your issues at the door. Because they really are going to affect how you're going to deal with your patients and your colleagues. And so she clearly did not come to UCI. And in fact, I didn't encourage her to call her therapist, but but that's what came to my mind when I said, so this is how you can accidentally blow things for yourself during these interviews. And that's why I say work on your interpersonal skills a little bit if you feel it. And some kids tell me, and they're honest, like, listen, I'm a painfully shy extrovert. Okay, fine. You realize that you have a problem. Go to Toastmasters, go to something where they make you speak in public, or help you, teach you how to speak in public. As a Toastmasters is the most famous one. That's I usually refer to that one. But or activities where you have to present in front of a crowd, or perform in front of a crowd, and so um that's my advice on that. And that's how you help yourself during don't go overboard and be too bubbly but like I said, a normal range of emotion. And that's what goes into the very large majority of how we go through the application process. I know there's some broad paint strokes, but that's that. You didn't get in. What happens? I don't care what Reddit says. A reapplicant is okay. I see reapplicants all the time. Some of them get in. But here's what I want from the reapplicant, right? Because if the first thing you do is tell me, well, when I didn't get in, I went backpacking through Europe to go find myself. Okay, tell you what, I'm going to help you repack and go back to Europe because that didn't do you any good and you should just keep trying to find yourself. So, but what do I want? I like grit. I like perseverance. I'm a big perseverance person. So if you stuck to it and you went back and you reviewed your application and again didn't think it was the MCAT, the 517 was your problem, or ask people, like, look at my application. What do you think went awry? You got plenty of counselors to help you, like at your schools. Um, was it that I didn't do enough clinical activity? Was it my MCAT? Was it my GPA? Do I need to do a post-bac? By the way, post-bacs are probably a lot better for me in my mind because they're very focused, and a lot of those programs will actually help you like how to take the MCAT and that kind of stuff, as opposed to getting a more advanced degree. I know a lot of people like to get MBAs or masters in something, which is perfectly fine. I'm not saying that's not
MPH.
MPH, thank you. But if that makes sense to you, again, don't do it because, oh, I'm going to get an MPH, even though it wasn't clear from your application that there was really nothing MPH-ish on your radar. Now, if you went to go work at an STD clinic or you had done some research on, population, stuff, then yes, that makes sense to you and that's perfectly fine, but it fits your mold, not something that you should do because you heard that that's a good thing. So that's my advice on that. And yes, there is life after not getting in. If you really are interested and you stick to it and that's your passion, then come back having improved your application. And there's a lot you could do to fix it in a year. And by the way, most of you are in your early 20s, and that's perfectly fine. Like I have people in their 30s that are applying. A few years ago, I accepted one person who was 40, and so there's no age limit. You have plenty of time to fix it if that's what you still want to do. So that's my advice there. Oh, and by the way, because I kind of mentioned like I don't care what school you came from. Frankly, it was, and here's the part where we're going to start as answering questions, right? Because I don't care if you started at a 2-year community college and then moved up, or if you finished 4 years, at a CSU, or as long as it's accredited and has all the courses that you need to take, then that's fine. And I don't care if you took, the one course that your school didn't happen to have that's recommended, and you went to, a community college to take the course during the summer. I don't care. But I get these questions all the time. They're non-issues. So don't worry about that. And you guys are, here at a CC conference. So some of you or most all of you are going to be at a community college. And if I didn't accept kids from community college, then why would you be here? Right. So just from the fact that I'm here offering tips means that I don't care that you care.
Yeah, why would you be here if
Yeah. So, and then the other thing is, oh, I'm from out of state and you guys don't take out of states, or you guys only take UC kids, or like, these are all falsehoods, right? But I will tell you this, because if you look at our roster, it's 80 to 85% UC kids, right? But that's because 80 to 85% of my applicants are UC kids. So the statistics are pretty favorable that it's going to be a UC kid, but those 15% of those other kids happen to come from somewhere else. So don't fret about it. It's just the overwhelming number from UC schools but I don't have any particular preference for them
and
all.
UCLA and Berkeley are
They're machines. They
right
are.
because they're large and a lot of people that are there. So,
Yeah. I can tell you our biggest pool of applicants is from UCLA.
but that's just because they have
Yeah, they're huge.
40,000 premeds.
Yeah, exactly. So, but rest assured, I do not prefer any one school or group of schools or anything over any other. As long as you've taken all the courses and met all the requirements, doesn't matter. Okay. I am kind of sort of running out of steam on my usual talking points, and I'm sure I'll come back to some of them when you guys ask me some of the questions, but I am happy to.
So this one question is, does it matter if it's paid or unpaid research?
Okay, again, you guys are going to obsess about the research. I don't care. I don't care if the research was picking fish out of a river. I don't care if it was pipetting in a lab. I don't care if it was paid or unpaid. I don't care if it was even medical, like at all. Like, I don't care if it was is left-handed versus right-handed underwater basket weaving better. I just don't care. And that's why I keep saying I don't care how many people you did research with. I don't care what the topic was. The point is this: are all of you going to be physician scientists? No. But do I need you to have the ability to suss out what is good written information and what is not? Yes. And a little bit of that comes from doing research, right? Because someday some pharma is going to come to you with a research paper saying my drug is better than everybody else's drug, and you're going to read that article, and I need for you to know whether that was a crap article or whether it was a real article, because I will tell you, and it is a dirty secret, and we kind of put it this way: you can torture data until it confesses, right? So was the paper well written? And at least if you've got nothing else from your research experiences, get that. And again, that's how I get an inkling that maybe you know that you're going to have those skills. But I'll tell you, it's a lifelong thing, right? Like, and I still do a lot of research, and I force my kids to come to me, like, okay, you need to do your own lit search, you need to do your own IRB application. Which, by the way, people get hired. It is a career to be the liaison to the IRB. I need you to know like how to collect the data, how to analyze the data, how to write the abstract, how to present it if it gets presented, how to write the manuscript if you got there. These are good life skills, and these are also, if you are interested, then you're sellable because you already know how to do it. So
And Dr. Barrios did
yeah.
an hour and a half of that, and I put that in there, and you could go watch that. So, I mean, he was very thorough with that talk. Matthew, do you want to do the next one?
Sure. I would just really quick. I mean, there's books talking about how to lie with statistics. So yeah, so that's a very important thing to be able to understand and look at and analyze. So this question asked about, so this person wants to go into like emergency medicine or general surgery. They wanted to ask if, what potential personal experiences you've had or would suggest for someone who maybe wants to go into that to like, I guess, prepare them for that.
um
Get into medical school.
yeah, seriously. No, so a little bit of shadowing, but here's my caveat for shadowing. I see all these kids that are doing like 120, 200 hours of shadowing. I'm like, I got news for you. Shadowing is the B side of the menu, right? Shadowing is like the vegetable that you have to pick with the entree. So I have kids that come to me and I tell them, listen, you get 2 or 3 times with me. That's gonna maybe be 24 hours. And oh, by the way, I think I've written 3 letters of recommendation from kids that came and shadowed me. Those are very exceptional. And again, why? Because it's medical experience light. It's not terrible, but like I said, if at the end of the day it reinforces that you like what you thought you liked, that's fine. If it kind of tells you, oh, this is not what I thought it was, and makes you shy away from it, I still did you a service, and no hard feelings, because no FOMO, right? So I don't want you to pick something that then you fantasized about, and because you didn't look into it, you uh put yourself down this tunnel, and now you can't get out of the tunnel, and now you're doing something you don't even really like, because that serves nobody, yourself or your patients or your family. So however, things like, if you're really interested in that, become an EMT, become an EMT tech, become a trauma tech, become an emergency room tech, become, uh, general surgery is a little bit harder. You can do some research. You can approach people, um, and say, let me do a little bit of research on that, because you're going to get probably a little bit of clinical exposure, as you're doing the research. And there's even Bio 199 courses where, as undergrads, you can do research in certain settings. I shamelessly use some of the emergency room Bio 199 kids. I steal them to help me with some, because I do injury prevention, and I do things like now, like um, we have it's called driving behind the wheel of older people that shouldn't be driving anymore, and how do we figure that out? Huge relationship between, under the influence and trauma. And so I look at that as part of my research projects. So roll up your sleeve, don't just shadow, go out there and do something. You got plenty of time to become an EMT and go on some drives for a few hundred hours, and work your way from there. So by the way, a lot of the advice that I give doesn't happen overnight. If you're applying tomorrow, going, or the day after tomorrow, doing some shadowing tomorrow is not going to help you. You have to roll up your sleeves. These are the things that you need to start in your first and second year, once you get your bearings, and work your way from there. And I'm not saying that you should, spend all this time and not get good grades and not, attend your courses. And I do understand that some of you have to pay for a roof over your head or for something to eat. And so, but what I'm saying is, like, it's really amusing to me that, I see kids working as a barista at Starbucks or working as a salesperson at Nordstrom's, and you're like, okay, if you got a job there, why couldn't you get a job in some sort of clinical setting, right? And I know some of those jobs are not as flexible as being a barista or something like that, but you got to work a little bit towards it, because I don't care if it's part-time. I don't care if you work 4 hours a day or a few times, or a couple of 12-hour shifts a week, or so. There are ways to work around that without being, having to do it at Starbucks. Not that there's anything wrong.
And just know that any kind of clinical experience that pays you, you need to have some sort of certification. And also, I would go even as far as to say, if in this country, if you're providing clinical care without certification, that's like a big,
Yeah,
it's
it's hard to come by those jobs
it's
with.
it's it's really hard to come by, but also like raises the question of like, because you're touching people and you're doing stuff and there's like a huge liability thing,
Yeah,
and why they make you be certified is not that, it's that if somebody comes and sues, says, well, this person did a 190-hour EMT class and XYZ, and so it's just kind of like a legal thing. But in this country, to touch a patient, you need to be certified. But
but that being said, it's like he was saying, it's a couple hundred hours. It's not death defying.
like you could become a phlebotomist in 40 hours.
Yeah,
You could become a doula if you're really interested in women's health. Like becoming a doula, it's like a 40-hour class and 40 hours clinical, and you could actually make pretty good money as a doula. And if you speak Spanish or Filipino or any of those languages, that you'll be doing a big service for your own community, but also um, really need it
yeah.
for better outcomes.
Yeah, so exactly. So that's my advice there about how do you go about figuring out if you're interested in it. And it doesn't necessarily even apply to emergency medicine or surgery. It could be any field whatsoever, right? You could go work and again, I just randomly pick them, but in a pediatrician's office or things like that. And yes, I'm not saying don't shadow ever. I'm just saying don't rely on that as a tool for your racking up your clinical hours, because it's not going to get you there.
I think for in California at least, I believe you don't need to be certified to be like a medical scribe if you want to do that. But they will say if you have the certification, it'll be much easier to get a job doing a medical scribe. So even if it's not, necessarily required, it's almost like certainly going to be, even if it isn't. So, for the next question, someone asked, so for regarding a personal statement, could you write about an issue you dealt with mentally or even physically, or would it just come off as like a sob story, or how do you avoid it coming off as a sob story?
Yeah. Again, have somebody help you read it when you're done writing it, right? Because there is that is correct. And I've counseled kids on this before. There's a difference between, hey, listen, this is something that I overcame because it was a challenging experience and it might have set me off in like my ability to get good GPA or something, versus woe is me. And I will tell you this, the biggest concern that we have is to be fair to kids that tell us that they have a psychological history or a mental illness, mental health issue. But in that case, what I want to read is that you overcame it. And again, if you got things under wraps, and you met the challenge and you successfully addressed it, then and it's not going to impact your patient care, I don't care. I'll take a little bit of into consideration that something you dealt with. But you're right, you don't want to come across as woe is me. Um, and so I can't tell you how to practice writing these things other than, again, there are plenty of people out there in the world that are your family members or your friends or your colleagues or your counselors who can help you read that statement to make sure you didn't do that, right? And I'll tell you, one of my recent favorite mentees, I happen to have a lot of disadvantaged mentees because I've kind of become a little famous for that. But I had the kid who was a baby daddy when he was 17, and he's an immigrant, and he struggled, and then he did a post back, and then he came and he did research with me, and now I'm trying to get him to go into surgery. I mean, he's that far progressed. He's a fourth year medical student. I had the kid who, mother was mentally ill and then died in an accident. Father was never in the picture, was raised by an overly religious zealot, grandparents that used to beat him for not being religious enough, and he got out of that world by going to the Navy, right? And he used his Navy experience and his Navy money to take courses, and he had to do a post back to get in, and I couldn't get him to UCI, which is what I really wanted, but I got him into Michigan State, so or Wayne State. So it's doable. And both of them had originally written statements that I was like, you're a little whiny. And because I will tell you, nothing sets me off. Well, a lot of things set me off, but nothing sets me off more than like somebody coming across from as whiny, right? Like, again, your patients are sick, they're scared, they're in need, and they don't want to hear about your life. They want to hear about their own lives, and how you're going to help them with it. So if you're coming across as whiny, double check and ask somebody in your personal statements, or is this coming across as whiny or a life experience? And these kids both rewrote their statements that made it more like, hey, listen, this is stuff that I overcame, but it made me empathetic and blah blah blah, and here we are. So yeah, I can't guide you as to who can help you with that, because that advice can come from anywhere.
The other thing is that a lot of you are asking, there, like any paid service is, unless you have a lot of money to do it. But if you are in California, and I know this in California, Arizona, most community colleges have writing centers, and you could go use those for free. Now, even though, yes, they are not experts in medical application, what they're expert on is being able to read, give you feedback, give you grammatical feedback. They could do a lot of those things. And I could tell you is, if you want to have somebody edit your essays, somebody with an English degree experience in that is way better than a busy physician. That's just like my personal opinion on that.
Yeah, no, and you're spot on, because that is part of the point, right? I don't want you paying for these things. Yes, that's really nice, but I'm guessing that most of you don't have parents that make over $500,000 a year that can pay for you to have all these services. Most of you have to do this through your own grit, and that's why I keep saying friends, family, you know, and you're right. The top-notch free thing for you is, if you're going to any California school, you should be having some services at the school that you're at to help you, whether it's a counselor, career counselor, or workshops that don't entail you paying hundreds of dollars to anyone given it, because that can get really expensive really fast, right? Like, oh, I have a writing counselor, and oh, I paid for MCAT. Oh, I paid for, it's like where does it stop? But you don't need those things is the answer. Good for them if they do, but I don't think that's stuff that you can't do on your own.
So similar to that, someone asked about the personal statement. If you know of any ways in which someone could perhaps practice their writing for it, or is there any way, or?
No, like let me refer you back to just the long last diatribe that we just have. Write your personal statements, go to a writing class, you know,
Writing center.
a writing center, counselor, but just have people read it. Just to like, it doesn't take much more than that. You write it, somebody reads it, they tell you it sounds goofy, you go back and you try again, or you go to any of the aforementioned things that you can do.
But also doing summer, applying to summer programs is a good practice. Internships, jobs, all of those things you practice writing about yourself and interviewing. And so there's a lot, practice makes perfect, you don't show up to if you want to run the marathon at the Olympics, you don't show up to the finals of the Olympic to run it. You start by running a 10K and you build up. And so, um, none of these things are magical that you innately learn that. It's either somebody, you have to experience it yourself, or you have, you know, um, yeah. So,
Yeah. And I don't care how good you think you are. Like even me at my stage of the career, I kind of get a little cocky sometimes, and I'm like, oh, I got this. And then I have I still have people read my stuff, and then they tell me, oh, why didn't you write it this way? And you're like, so, you know, uh, even somebody in my stage in my career, like I still practice what I preach, and I still have people read my stuff.
All right, for the next question, it's about the post box. Could you elaborate on why a postdoc would be better than a master's? And also, how do you feel about like a formal postdoc versus an informal postdoc?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're just going to run around and retake the courses that you need to take, I mean, that's fine. You can actually even do that on your own, right? But the point of a formal post back, and you need to look at what they're offering, but it's not just retake the courses that you need to take because they cover a lot of the basic science courses. Is they will help you with all of these things. They will do fake, mock interviews. They will have MCAT prep. They will walk you through. Some of these programs actually even have a connection to the admissions committee at the place where they're at. They kind of at least guarantees them an interview. And so it is literally prep for fixing your application. And above and beyond just taking the course right now. Like I said, if you are interested in an MPH and you were going to go there anyways, and you're like, I didn't get in, so I might as well get my MPH now. Nothing wrong with that. But again, that MPH is just going to get you the MPH. It's not going to focus on helping like you study for your MCAT and MCAT prep and all that kind of stuff. So I would encourage you to look at the different post specs and see what they offer, but a formal post spec is probably going to get you um, uh, stuff outside of just retaking the courses that you may not have done well in.
Alrighty, this person asks, how to overcome from bad grades in your freshman year.
Uh, yeah, that's a struggle for us. Why, right? Address it head on.
what did
Many
you learn from it, and how did you fix it?
And how did you fix it? And I will tell you this, if you really kind of flubbed it, but your sophomore, junior, and senior year, things kept getting better. We do actually look at trends, right? Now, if you got like a 3.1 and you hobbled along with a 3.1 all 4 years, probably not much I can do for you. Now, if you got a 3.1 and then got a 3.5 and then a 3.7 and then a 3.9, well, it's obvious that you had some adjustment issues from whatever reason or some self-limited problem that kept you from focusing, and you overcame that. And again, overcame, grit, challenge. That's how you fix that, and you address it. He's like, hey, listen, my first year sucked because but I readjusted, or it was self-limited, and I got better, and I looked at, self-evaluating and all that kind of stuff. But don't try to excuse it. Oh, the school was unfair to me. I'm like, yeah, well, you know what? Life isn't fair.
Yeah, just know why you got. I mean, if you're one of those people that your freshman year involved in 60 clubs and didn't start studying till 11 o'clock at night,
Time management. Yep.
time management, and that's okay. Everybody does that. Not everyone's perfect. Not all of us not walk on water, but no, what is it? Uh, in the Bible, Luke says, "Physician, heal thyself." Like, how did you heal your bad grades? you know?
No, and I do see that. And I do see kids that
Yeah.
write almost exactly that. Hey, I got over involved and like blah blah blah, or it was my first time away from home and blah blah blah. And then after the first semester I got over it and like, things like that.
Ready for the next question. Someone asks if you know about whether UCI Medical School accepts AP credits for courses or certain courses.
That's a good question.
Well,
I honestly don't do the course screening. That would have to leave that to my admissions director.
Yeah, I would just tell you this. A lot of medical schools don't accept AP credit. Some do. And I think they have them posted on their website. And I could look at UCI's and see.
Yeah.
And
No, that's probably information, like you said, that's probably just information that you could pull off of our website. We're very transparent about what we accept and don't accept and what we recommend versus what we require.
I think the AAMC also has a list of what colleges accept AP credit for each course and whatnot too. So, for the next question, someone asked about gap years. What are your thoughts on gap years? Is there such a thing as too many gap years?
Gap years. Hate them. But it's become a reality of life. I actually did a study on them. They're here to stay. Are they completely necessary? No. Do I get a lot of applicants and people accepted who have not done a gap year and haven't graduated yet, but they will have graduated by the time, med school comes around next year? Yes. But again, look at your application and self-evaluate it. If you've already done all those things that I've mentioned, that is a good application. Then you don't need a gap year. If again you're paying for a roof over your head and your car and food, and you don't have time to go dig a well in Guatemala, then a gap year becomes necessary, right? But again, what did you do with your gap year? Did you go work in a clinic, or did you go do some research? Did you go volunteer? Any and all of the above? Did you repeat some courses? Did you? So again, it's what you did with that time, as opposed to backpacking through Europe. So which I'm going to go to Europe soon, so I'm not poo-pooing Europe, uh, but that's what I want to see, what you did with your post-bac, that it was meaningful to you and that you improved your application with the activities that you did, any which way. It used to be one gap year. Now I'm seeing 2 gap years. I'm seeing people that had other complete different careers. And so it wasn't even really a gap year. It was like, oh, I was, in the finance world. And then I needed to take some of the basic science courses that I never really took because I was in finance. And here I am 4 or 5, 6 years later out of medical school, but I have a compelling story. So there's no max. And as much as I used to hate the concept of people feeling like because and this is what I really don't like, or and I am going to use like a mild version, but like the freaking gunners, they keep raising the bar because they've already done all the right stuff, but they feel compelled to like work in that third and fourth research lab, and make it impossible for everybody else. But our way of toning that down is, again, to max out the points, right? If you did 5,000 hours, you're not going to get 20 points. You're going to get the same points that the person who did 1,000 hours did. So I'm starting to get to the point where like I'm getting annoyed by these people that are doing extra, and I'm going to start turning them down because it's just clear that they're in it for the game and not because they're in it for the medicine.
The next question, someone asks, what are some coping mechanisms you use in your hectic and busy life?
That is a really good question. And again, that's why I asked that question that throws people off. What do you do in your spare time? That's just for you, right? And so Matthew, and because you're the one I can see here, and I'm going to torture you. What do you do in your spare time that's just for you? And I'll tell you what mine is, but
I play piano and guitar.
yeah, see, that's just for you, and it makes you happy, and it helps you refocus or blow off steam or decompress and not think about like that professor that yelled at you or gave you an F on your paper, which hopefully you never got any Fs. But the for me, I do two things. I love movies. I torture people on rounds with references to movies that are probably beyond their years. I like mentioning older movies, and it's getting really sad for me because like I'm mentioning movies in the 1980s that these kids now on rounds, these medical students and these residents like are like no clue. Like I kind of yelled at one of my fellows once because I mentioned Out of Africa, which is an amazing character development movie and like the best actress ever, Meryl Streep, and like had no clue. And like I told her, you are not coming back to rounds tomorrow unless you go home tonight and watch it on some streaming service and then tell me about it because it just drove me insane. So and then the other thing for me, and like, and people know, and I tell myself like, oh my God, I've become an adolescent because I literally walk around all day long with a phone in my face, because I'm answering emails and I'm answering texts. And oh, by the way, I sit on 20 committees and, and the dean of admissions, and I actually run an NGO to go do medical missions in South America or Central America. And so I'm constantly answering from everybody. And my thing to myself is I go to the gym and I get on the treadmill and I put my phone on silent and I do not pay attention to my phone for an hour, and I do something for my health, and I sweat and I wheeze and I curse myself, and I run for an hour, and it's my me time. That's my world, just myself, and I try to listen to the latest like workout blast, and I disappear from the world for an hour, and then like I actually get people like, how come you didn't answer me? I'm like, okay, you know what? People don't have to answer you within 30 seconds of like a text to like make the world run. So I highly encourage your me time, except backpacking through Europe. Anyway, next.
All right, for the next question, someone asks, what is a good or a competitive NCAT score?
Can't tell you.
That's posted on the, it's a posted on their website, and I put that in the chat. So
Yeah, it's every school has a different average. Ours last year was 517, I believe. But that means I took people with 520 somethings, and I took people in the low 500s. Now I will tell you, and again, the only hint that I will give you, if you have any hope of getting into any decent school, and I don't even care. Oh, and this is my other thing. Shows like my latest pet peeve again, another one. Um, uh, it should have a 5 in front of it. And otherwise you're going to run into trouble getting interviews and things like that, or get screened in. So that's all I can say there. But
and
yeah,
there's also a WMC grid that I'm gonna put this in there that you could pull up every single school's.
and there is, I can't tell you what that, well, I guess you could probably find it, but there is a magic number below which we know that you are going to struggle, and we don't want to set you up for failure. But you can do a little bit of Googling, and that number will become apparent very quickly to you. But competitive is different, right? Because what am I looking for, and how competitive are some of the schools that you're applying to, which is the thing that I was going to come back to. I now literally get this because of my position. I got into another medical school, but it's not the one I really wanted to go to. and I wanted to come to UCI, and UCI either rejected or waitlisted me. And should I like literally they're asking me if they should turn that other school down to go to UCI and like and reapply the next cycle. And I'm like, absolutely no freaking way should you do that. You got into medical school. I don't care if it's Squeedunk, Michigan. They're going to call you doctor at the end of the 4 years, right? And I don't care if it was inconvenient for you because your family lives in Irvine. But you know what? I can't guarantee, like, again, you're going to go back into that same pile of the 4,000 kids that applied. And how do I know that you're going to get in any site? So a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So that has, and these people that persist, but what if, there is no what if. You got in, take it and run with it. Because I will tell you this, like all the schools are so controlled and so guided by governing bodies at the federal level, or that you're going to get almost as good an education. I don't care if it was Harvard. I don't care if it was Squeedunk, Michigan. They have to follow the same guidelines. And this is also true. It's what you put into it. So if you go to a quote unquote mediocre school, but you bust your butt and you like, try hard to ace everything and get involved in the correct activities and the things that you think you want to go into, and you participate in like surgery interest group or emergency medicine interest group, or and you put a lot into it, then it doesn't matter what school you went into. God, I don't care if you went to Harvard and you just sat in the back of the class and you barely got enough to pass your grades and you didn't do any activities, then Harvard didn't do you any service other than you put your name Harvard on your certificate. And like it holds no sway to us, because let me tell you, I also read residency level applications, and those again are based on like, did you do research, did you do extra community service, did you do belong to any interest groups, the name of where you came from doesn't really matter anymore as much, unless you're like super snooty, but we try so hard to be not backdoor, transparent, that it's not how it used to be back in the day when like somebody would call somebody and go, hey, Yale, my kid from Harvard wants to go to you, and then that's an automatic done deal. It's just like the stuff doesn't happen anymore. I mean, it does, but it's a rarity. So don't sweat that. But if you got into med school, take it.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
surprised.
which is, so to follow up on that, actually to add to that, don't apply to 10 schools, because this is the other mistake these kids make. Well, I only want to go to UCI, so I should only apply to like 10 schools because like, who cares? No, apply to 20, 30, 40, and some of you can get, fee waivers, and so it's a lot cheaper for you. And take advantage of that. Like literally 30 to 50 schools. I don't care how good you think you are or what school you think you want to go to. Apply broadly, please.
I will say I am surprised that people apply to places that they're not willing to go to. They get accepted. It's like, why even bother then? So
Yeah, and so they thought it might be some sort of safety school, but haha, I'm going to get into the one I really want anyways. Then you're right. Then why did you bother, right? So, but once you got in, you got in. You did it. Like,
exactly.
you're going to make life. Trust me, you're going to make lifelong friends. You're going to find favorite restaurants. You're going to like, go to favorite clubs with your friends, and just it's going to be a life experience. And so just take it. Don't overthink it.
So this person asked about GPA. How do you look at GPA? Like, for example, do you combine CC plus undergrad if you went to like a 2 year, then a 4 year? Do you look at post-bac? Do you combine that? Do you just, how do you look
Yeah,
at
the only separations we do, like it's all goes into one big giant pool, but we do separate out the BCMPs, which is your science courses. So I get an overall GPA and I get a sciences GPA, and that's the only thing I look at. Again, I don't care where it came from.
Someone asked if you can expand a little bit on what main skills you would like to see from like clinical experience, extracurriculars, leadership, so outside of research, because you already touched on that.
Yeah. Whatever
You guys gotta understand, like clinical experience is a very different thing. If you're the kind of person that can, take on stress and situations, don't do ER, don't do EMT. If you're one of those people that like gets bored really easy and has ADHD, don't go work at a hospice or a clinic. Like it's kind of like
Your
what you're
personality.
interested in is that. I mean, like I work in the ER because that's my personality. If you put me in a hospice setting, even though it's really worthwhile, I will probably like jump out the window or something. Like
Yeah.
it just, you know, or you can, so like do what you enjoy doing, because the worst thing you could do in your life is do something that you hate,
Yep.
Dr. Dr. Barrios says, yes, I want every single one of my people do EMT. I would say probably 20% of you will probably not go into medicine because like it's a pretty like or hospice or anything like that. Like don't do it, it's kind of like
You hit the nail on the head. I was just gonna say, as long as it's something that makes sense to you, and I know I picked on that clowning kid, but if you like pediatrics, go work at a children's hospital. Don't go dressed as a clown, but go work at a children's hospital. If you like craziness like I do, and like he hit it on the head. I am completely ADHD. None of my days ever look the same. I enjoy that. Chaos is my comfort zone. That is not for a lot of people. But again, emergency department, trauma surgery, go work as an EMT, or go work as a trauma tech, or go, an emergency room tech. But every, if you're like what I call like you're a little bit shy and you're like, go work in a path lab, go work in radiology. Like it depends, as Jubin said, like make it make sense to you. And I'm going to go back to what I said at the very beginning, right? Make it make sense to you, that it fits your experiences and that it fits your lifestyle and your interests. And you're going to do a good job at it because you like it. And people are going to write you a nice letter of recommendation. And that's how you do it. I can't advise you on what you should do because I don't know who you are.
yeah, like everybody's different. Like our fingerprints, proves that. And yeah, do what you enjoy doing, and what, because you're gonna spend the rest of your life doing this. And you also, like, let's say, I've had people that wanted to go into emergency medicine or surgery, and they end up in pediatrics because they go through the medic. So you change that in medical school. That's the whole point of medical school. Like you're not gonna know. I'm sure Dr. Barrios changed his mind a few times in medical school.
I thought I was going to be a surgical oncologist. Um,
Oh,
and yes, talk about like I would probably blown my brains out by now because it's a very precise world and it's a very pre-planned world. And your patients come back to you, and it's like one of my old colorectal surgeon attendings would say. It was like you operate on them, they're yours for life, and they come in with a pneumonia and they call you for some god awful reason, and that's not the way my mind works. Like I really like that trauma patients are catch and release, and that most of them I never see them because I throw them back out into the wild, and I did what I needed to do for them, and but that's for me. That's not necessarily going to work for you.
Kind of on that topic, about specialties and whatnot. A lot of people are asking about whether an applicant should indicate, what specialties they're interested in the application or not.
I'm going to ask you, do you have any thoughts on what you might be interested in? Because from some applications, it's obvious, right? And again, oh, I became an EMT and I was a tech and I was like, and okay, oh, this guy's gonna go into emergency. Oh, I work at CHLA and I did summer camp for kids with cancer. Like this person's gonna be a pediatrician. So, uh, it's fair game, and I don't know that I would, foreshadow it too much, but you're probably going to be asked anyways, with the understanding that you might change your mind. Like I said, half the kids do. So there's nothing wrong with that. If that's something that you're really kind of adamant about to begin with. And like, that's not to say that like that, a lot of you aren't going to be, going into the things that you say that you're going to go into, but and it's kind of fun and it's kind of interesting because it also makes you a little bit different than the next kid who's just kind of like, I just want to go to med school, which is again, also nothing wrong with that, but it becomes something to talk about, right? You got to fill those 30 minutes with something. And not bringing up your mommy issues. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
This person asks, can you speak a little bit about your path to academic medicine?
I had no idea what I was doing, and God bless my parents. And again, the advice at the end of the day, which we're going to give in about 10 minutes before we wrap this up, is ask questions, ask questions. I didn't know to ask enough questions. So again, I got into med school by applying to one place, and then I didn't know how the residency match application or what it took at the time to get into it. So I even advised my own medical students about how to get into the specialty that they want, especially they come to me mostly if they're interested in surgery. But go find the career counselor that's correct. Oh, by the way, and this was a thing that I learned, like you can have more than one mentor. It is not a marriage. You know, and different one person cannot meet all of your needs, right? So you can have a research mentor, an academic mentor, a career mentor, career specialist mentor, like like in my case, kids come to me because they know I'm in surgery, and so no one person can fit the whole bill. And so go out and get different mentors and have them help you on focus on different topics, and have multiples of them. And that's my advice of like ask questions, have a lot of mentors. That'll help get you there because you don't know what you don't know, and that was my problem. So I didn't know how to get into residency. I struggled. I tell people, when you are applying for, and especially for surgery residency, you can get a preliminary spot, which means like, yeah, you're going to work there for a year, but you're not guaranteed. Or you can get a categorical spot, which is like, yeah, you're going to go all the way through. And I actually never got into a program categorically. I applied always as a prelim or as a special hire, because I didn't get in the first time around and I stuck to it. And then I actually stepped out because my mother got sick. And then it's really kind of funny that Jubin should mention that, but I actually did hospice for a few years. And I realized at the end of the day that that was not who I was. And I came back to it, and I came back to surgery, and here I am now. And oh, by the way, this is how I got back to surgery. I went to my dean at the med school that I graduated from, and I said, listen, I'm a surgeon after all. Like, what do you know? And she happened to have a friend who was the program director at UCSF, which I would never have gotten in the front door. And over a phone call, she agreed to hire me, and I moved myself to San Francisco. And they didn't have a guaranteed spot, but I did 2 years there, and then they found me a spot in Arizona where I finished. So I actually ran around a little bit. So the point of that story is not like, oh, look at me. The point of my story is that you can have some setbacks and you can have some struggles and challenges, but if you stick to it and you're honest in what you want, like you're gonna get what you want. All right. And here I am. I've been at the same job for it's gonna be 20 years soon. And this is probably where I'm gonna round up my career. And it's been a pretty good one, but I had to work hard and roll up my sleeves to get here. And I had to like bang on a lot of doors and annoy a lot of people. But sorry, not sorry, here I am.
Alrighty, so for the next couple questions, they're about shadowing. Someone asked, how would you give advice on how to make the most out of shadowing? Like, what are some skills to help someone who is shadowing stand out?
Yeah,
And
just
then
ask some questions. Don't just stand there like a fly on the wall. Like if you have some earnest questions, like don't be obvious about it. Like and like what I'm saying is don't be like, oh, I feel compelled that I have to ask a question. Just kind of sort of like just, oh, why did you do that? Or oh, that's interesting. Or oh, what happens if a patient shows up with so don't just stand there passively letting the experience wash over you. Just be active in the experience by asking some questions. I mean, there's limitations as to what you could do
Don't
physically.
do it while you're cracking a chest.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't, you can't touch anybody, like foreshadowing
And
experiences.
don't take this out and, do
Yeah.
your social media
Yeah, no,
and
be in
act
the moment. Oh
unrestricted.
my God. Yeah. So I know he's talking about
I've kicked out people for doing that, like
yeah. Like, why are you here if you're just gonna be on
your phone.
if you're gonna be on your phone?
And
So
don't say, "Oh, I was looking up what this is." No, like
no, just
bring a pen
don't.
and paper to write
And
it.
by the way, please don't take pictures of patients.
Pictures.
Like
Yeah.
we've had to kick people out for that kind of thing. So but yes,
I've had nurses that have been fired, so
yeah, yeah. Active participation. Don't just show up and let it passively wash over you.
there's this cool invention called pen and paper. Take notes then. It makes you smart and look interested.
All right, what else we got? Let's rack through a few before we.
Someone,
Um,
how do you feel about online shadowing?
No.
The next question is someone asked, so you mentioned earlier about like being like kind of not exactly culture blind, but being blind towards gender, race, etc. How
Yeah.
do you feel about someone incorporating culture into their personal experience, personal statement?
There's nothing wrong with that. But again, be careful because once you put it out there, they can ask you about it. But if you're like, hey, listen, I like serving the like and I know I look like a generic white dude, but I'm actually quite Hispanic. And I say like I do my medical missions in South America. I, go and I serve in free clinics that are mostly Latino. Like that's okay. I have kids put in there all the time. Like, listen, I serve at my temple, or I brought a health fair to my temple, which obviously most of those are going to be like Asian or Middle Eastern when I use the word temple. But so it doesn't matter. It's not going to do negatively against you. Now, if you start doing and saying things like it's my goal to like convert everybody, all of my patients, then like yeah, that's not going to go over well.
Alrighty, the next question is someone asked, what do you look for in the secondaries you review?
Legit things. Like I said, for us, it's what are you proud of, and what are you proud of, and or what did you overcome? And again, the only thing is be careful with like don't sound whiny or don't make it all about you. And I can tell you about the one girl because oh, by the way, because of my job, it's my job to re-interview any interview that goes awry, and that happens about 4 or 5 times a year. Um, and I had the girl who, and this is why I am very, very serious about, if you put it out there, it becomes fair game. So she mentioned about being bulimic because she was stressed out because of a bad marriage that she was in from a young age. And um, then she got divorced and then she overcame her bulimia, and now maybe she wants to work as a teen or an adolescent psychologist. And like that all sounded really good, but every single time when I re-interviewed her because the attending thought there was something off about her, she kept bringing it back to her bulimia and her marriage. Like it was in her personal statement, it was in her secondaries, and she kept bringing it up with all of her answers. And she goes, "Well, because when I overcame my bulimia, and I almost yelled at her, but did you though? Because if you keep coming back to it, you haven't dealt with it. So you have to be careful about crossing that line, but." Again, if she really had overcome it and it was obvious and she was kind of sort of going in the right direction, like I could see her as a teen psychiatrist, adolescent psychiatrist, then fine, but not when she kept bringing her own issues to the surface.
This is a question that's been a couple of times, and I felt you're probably the best person. People are asking on their why medicine questions, what should they answer? What should that answer be?
You know what? I just be honest about it. What is it about medicine, right? Like I tell people, like surgery is such a uh, yeah, especially trauma surgeon for me, right? Because I like taking the chaos and I like snatching death out of the jaws of or and and I like being able to fix my patients with my hands and get immediate gratifications, and I like that when my patient, my sick and scared and in pain patient recovers, that we have a moment of hey, we cheated death together. And like that just all fits me, but that's me. So it's like, what is it for you? And if you try to fake it and give me a generic answer, because the reason really for you is because your parents locked you in a closet until you went to med school, that's it's going to become apparent. Don't think don't think you can flim-flam your way through that.
Alrighty, for the next question. Someone asked, what is the single most important aspect in the application that you look for? Like if you had to choose one thing that you look for the most, what would you say that?
Well, if it was one thing, then it wouldn't ask you for all these other things.
Right. I could just ask you for the one thing and be done with it. But again, it's I get this question all the time. There is no magic juice. There's no magic formula. There's no gotcha one thing. It is a gestalt. It's spelled GESTALT. And it's just how the application comes across. And it is every application is a bunch of puzzle pieces that we're trying to put together. And there's no, when I put each and every puzzle together, that puzzle looks different. So I can't tell you what is the one thing that's going to make me go, oh, everything else was kind of sort of okay, but this one thing that doesn't exist.
In medicine, it's not that one thing. It's differential so it's not that one thing that gets you to the operating room. It's a host of other things or treatment. So it's, if it was that one thing, they wouldn't make the application so long and
Or it
cumbersome
wouldn't,
and
or
put
it wouldn't
hours and
be
hours and
30
hours.
things. Yeah. All right, couple more questions.
Alrighty, the next question is, so this one is asking, given how extensive and rigorous the medical school admissions process is in evaluating applicants' motivation and resilience, why do you think nearly 43% of physicians later report being unsure or unwilling to choose medicine again?
I will tell you what the real answer is. It is the freaking paperwork. Like, as much as I love my job, I hate the paperwork, and I've really gotten to the point in my career, and I will share this with you. I am going on 60 years old, and I tolerate BS a lot less. And I have actually now started to like push back on all the paperwork people. Like I literally in the middle of a division meeting with a bunch of my colleagues like went off on the critical care billing people just because I couldn't take it anymore. And so if there was any one thing that I can point to about why people get burned out, and it is the ridiculous amount of paperwork that's involved. The computers were supposed to make it better, they just made it worse. Like I have colleagues, and I myself am one of those where like I sit here at night watching television and I'm like going through charts to complete them so I don't get the nasty gram from the people. So if you look at dissatisfaction and burnout rates, and the number one reason why people feel that way, it's the paperwork. So I don't know how to fix that. I don't know that it's going to be fixed anytime soon or before I retire, but that is the large. And again, like some of that dissatisfaction comes from, and it's not a perfect system, and you can fool us, but like the ones that did it because their parents wanted them to, right? And so they're never going to be. I got news for you. You are never going to be happy if the reason that you're doing it is because your parents made you.
Yeah, the other thing is a couple of people are asking when I should retake the MCAT, and I've got five, XX, and should I take it? And the only big issue that you guys are talking, the gunners that you want for your own thing, if you have, let's say, a 510, if you retake it and you get a 500, how would that look to the committee?
Oh
And
yeah.
Dr. Barrios could, so you have to make sure if you're going to retake it that you're going to do better. Now, if you have a 510 and you take a 511, like you spend all this time and money and it's not going to get you to the promised land. But if you, let's say you get a 495 the first time and you get a 515, you are the promised land. So just like make sure like, and I've known a couple people in our group that have done that. Like I had somebody who had a 517 and I was like, dude, make sure you don't do it, and they ended up getting a 507. You
Yeah.
know,
And then they cheated themselves because I'm going to look at that 507, not the 517.
yeah. So guys, like, and I know that it's, numbers make us.
Yeah, so that's the two things, right? You kind of actually touched on two things. If you got a 517, I guarantee you 100% it wasn't the 517. Take a look at your application. There was something about you, whether it was your activities or your interpersonal skills at that point in the program, that didn't get you in. So the Gunners, again, yes, be very careful. A, do I really need to take it? And even the 510, I can guarantee you it's not a 510 can get you into UCI if everything else looks good, right? And everything else lines up for you, or you do one of our mission-based programs or whatever. But so, or that 510 will have easily gotten to you into a lesser tier school, Squeedunk, Michigan. And again, is it that you need to go to UCI, or you are so gung-ho on going to medicine come hell or high water that you're willing to apply to programs that you feel you should be holding your nose at, like, because you're gonna get the good experience anyways. So A, do you need to retake it? And B, if you're going to retake it when you can. Because if you know that you didn't do as well as you thought you were going to do, or you learned lessons from taking it the first time around, and you really feel like, okay, if I take another 2 months and I really restudy and I really use the techniques that I learned from like where I think I made mistakes on taking it the first time, then yes, but I don't care. I don't know. Is that going to take 1 month, 2 months, 6 months? That's on you about when you're going to be comfortable retaking it if you need to.
All right, last question. If you could give one advice to every pre-med out there, what would it be after this
I already
one and
did.
a half hour?
I already ask questions, go knock on a lot of doors, write a lot of emails, uh, because you don't know what you don't know. Find the mentors that can help you. And I don't care if those are already MDs, or if it's counselors, or if it's the different schools, and go, hey, I might be interested in your school. How do you think I can get in? Or what do you need from me? Or what aspect on the, or what website, or what, just ask. And if you, and I kind of sort of joke, but I kind of don't. If you ask until you annoy people, that's their problem, not yours. Because they should be there to help you. And yes, you can sometimes, like, outwear your welcome, but if you do, just move on to the next person.
Oh, this is something else. A lot of people are asking about clinical experience and getting certification. This is a job that you could do right now. Go get your CPR, your healthcare, and apply to be a patient escort or patient transport. It's like $25 an hour. And what it does is it gives you the nice little badge into a hospital, and you'll spit and you'll hit doctors and
Yeah.
nurses and PAs, and you get to go all over the hospital, and then you could strike up a conversation and go on your own time and chat, or you get to go see a lot of cool things.
Or like you were saying, scribing. I mean, it really doesn't take much to, tell people you're a scribe and go and help some physician do the paperwork that we hate.
Although Dr. Urias, scribing is going away in the next couple of years because of AI.
Well, AI is probably gonna, but take it for what it is for now.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of scribing, and you don't need to be certified, and you just have to jump through those hoops in each company that hires you.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I don't want to keep you any longer because it's 7 minutes past our deadline, and so thank you again for joining us, and hopefully you have a great day off today, and thanks everyone for joining. And yep,
All right, and there's always a next time.
yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you again.